And what kind of environment or culture facilitates the creation of radical behavior?
What kind of environment
Yeah,
facilitates it?
maybe if I don't know, maybe people who suffered physical or psychological abuse in childhood tend to be more
Yeah.
radical. I don't know.
Well,
There's
that's
a correlation.
yeah. So that's actually something that we're studying right now. We don't have we have some preliminary data on it. So I mean, I was just doing some research in Syria recently, some survey studies, psychometric survey studies, comparing about half the people who were members of ISIS, who were Syrians, members of ISIS, to people who lived in ISIS territory but were never members of ISIS. So they all come from the same area in Syria. And so, I want to see like how do they differ on all these different psychological scales. And there were some differences, but like one of the ones that stood out the most was this measure called adverse childhood experiences. So like, were you abused as a child? Were you beaten really bad by your parents? Were you bullied by your peers? Did you just have some really bad experiences as a kid? That measure was the best in terms of being able to understand, in terms of differentiating who was a member of ISIS and who wasn't, coming from the same town in Syria. That's preliminary, research. You obviously need to do longitudinal research, where you can see the effect of it. What you see is that, yeah, people who have experienced, so the current project that I'm the research and policy director here at King's College London on this project called Accept, and it's a project that's looking at trauma and its effect on pathways to peace and violence. And so we're looking in Syria, we're looking in Iraq, and we're looking in South Sudan as well. And it's a very large scale project. 1,500 people will be surveyed in two waves in each country. So, we're going to look at their epigenetics and all sorts of things, hopefully do some brain scans as well. But the main hypothesis is that we think people who have suffered some form of severe trauma, whether it's conflict related trauma because they were in a war zone, or whether it was just abuse from childhood or something, that these people are now going to be more susceptible potentially to getting pulled into violent conflict. And the idea, and there's a lot of reasons for why that may be the case. People who have trauma have higher rates of depression and anxiety. They have more distress in their life. People who have trauma have less ability to handle uncertainty. They have the world is the complexity of the world is terrifying to a person who suffers from trauma. So they have these vulnerabilities that then extremist groups can then play upon, because they'll say, hey, we'll pull you out of your depression, we'll pull you out of your anxiety, we'll help you deal with uncertainty, because again, we're going to give you this very beautiful narrative that explains everything. And not only does it explain everything, but the narrative gives you a role. It gives you a character. It turns you into Frodo Baggins. It turns you into Luke Skywalker. It turns you into this hero. Yeah, you're a hero in this story, and that can be be relieving for a person. And one of our hypotheses is that we think that if a person just has regular PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, that some of these things may actually be very healing for them.